Is the RX 9070 XT the perfect GPU for 1440p gaming? Let's find out. We'll try FSR 4 resolution upscaling, ray tracing performance, as well as raw rasterization performance in the latest games. To test this, I paired the Gigabyte Gaming OC version of the RX 9070 XT with the Ryzen 7 9800X3D CPU as part of my Be Quiet PC build powered by MSI, and we'll be experiencing the games today on one of the best monitors for the job. This is the MSI 271QRX 360Hz 1440p QD OLED monitor. If you are interested in any of the products featured in this video, you can find them on Amazon at the links in the description below. Currently, there are no games that have native support for FSR 4, but it is fairly easy to enable it in games that support FSR 3.1. And let me show you how it's done. All you do is just bring up the AMD software, then go to the Gaming tab, and select the game that you want to override with FSR 4, and then select Fidelity Effects Super Resolution 4. Just switch that on, and it will work. That said, in my experience, it doesn't work in every game that is listed as supported. For example, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. I don't have that option, even though I know for a fact that other people are able to select FSR 4 from this menu right here. I don't know what's up with that. I've tried troubleshooting it. I was not successful in resolving this issue. Hopefully AMD can fix this in a future driver update. To begin with, I want to try FSR 4 first in a game that I know really well. Any visual issues introduced by the upscaling will be very apparent to me in this game. So let's take a look what AMD has cooked up in terms of resolution upscaling, because FSR 4 is their first crack at using machine learning resolution upscaling. NVIDIA has been doing it with DLSS for a long while already, and I'm happy to see that AMD has finally joined in. In terms of settings, we are at 1440p using AMD FSR 4 quality mode. Ignore this FSR 3 signage. As I mentioned previously, if you select that FSR 4 override in the AMD software, it will actually swap the FSR 3 DLL file with FSR 4. So we are actually looking at FSR 4 right now. And I can confirm that this is not FSR 3. I would know, because I absolutely hate how FSR 3, 3.1, 2.2, all of those, they look absolutely horrific in my opinion. I never want to use those resolution upscalers at all. Not at 1440p, not at 4K, any resolution, any quality mode. I absolutely despise it. Purely because they introduce way too many visual issues that break my immersion. I just don't feel like it's worth enabling. Oh, and in terms of graphics settings, we are absolutely maxed out. Take a look at that. Field of view is maxed out as well. In terms of performance, this is absolutely beautiful. 150 FPS in some scenes and 130 plus in other scenes. Yes, this is very nice indeed. However, the frame rate is a little bit spiky, but I can tell you right away my impressions on this 360 Hz monitor. Yeah, the frame rate is smooth. The gameplay is smooth and enjoyable. I can confirm that. And in terms of image quality, yes, I very much enjoy FSR 4 now. I have no issues using it. I highly recommend it actually. Same as I did with DLSS 3 and DLSS 4. Yeah, it's worth enabling it and getting that extra performance for smoother gameplay. Oh, you want some? Come get it. Yes, that'll teach you. Let's try native 1440p resolution now, shall we? We'll have to turn off resolution upscaling, and let's select native FSR 4 anti-aliasing solution. Yes, this looks beautiful. FSR 4 is important in more than one way because TAA is horrible. Other anti-aliasing solutions, well, the traditional ones, also suck. The only one I used to love so far is DLAA, developed by NVIDIA, and that is for NVIDIA graphics cards only. And now we have FSR 4 anti-aliasing, and it looks beautiful. And in terms of performance, the 9070 XT is still excelling. Take a look at that, well above 100 FPS. Oh, this is beautiful, 120 plus just then. Ah, yes. By the way, this game doesn't have any ray tracing, but it doesn't really need it. The game still looks beautiful. Horizon Forbidden West is a great example that you can still make beautiful looking games without ray tracing in 2025. Well, actually, this is a 2024 title, but damn, with some of the games that came out in 2025, looking at how beautiful this looks, you'll be forgiven for thinking that this is a 2025 release. It's a beautiful game. In terms of power consumption, the GPU usually consumes around 330 watts. But let's see what happens if we lock that FPS at 60, okay? We'll cap that FPS and let's see what kind of efficiency can we get. Look at that. 115 watts. 108 watts. 117. Not bad. Let's continue our testing in the highly popular Monster Hunter Wilds. We are at 1440p, uncapped frame rate, and the best option that I'm currently using to play this game is this. AMD's FSR enabled. We'll select FSR quality mode. Ray tracing is set to the highest option, high, and all of the graphics settings are maxed out completely. Yes, everything is maxed out with the exception of motion blur and depth of field. Those are turned off. By the way, I am not using the high resolution texture pack because it breaks the performance in this game. It is absolutely horrible. Even though it does improve the texture quality, it is just not worth it because the game becomes a stuttering mess. So we're using the vanilla high textures. As you can see, the performance is not too shabby actually. 80 plus FPS in the camp area where a lot is going on. There's NPCs, lots of items, but I hear some people are saying that the performance will be worse during boss fights. Although the fights that I've experienced so far were absolutely fine using this graphics quality. But because there's this game bug that drops the FPS by a lot when you pan the camera, I can see how it might be beneficial to actually aim for higher frame rate. And yeah, that is something that the game developers actually have to address. This is a huge issue because take a look at this. When we are stationary, we're getting 90 plus FPS. As soon as we start panning the camera, the FPS drops to 70 plus, sometimes going to 60s. Just out of curiosity, let's check out native anti-aliasing solution. So this is not upscaled, just native performance. And with the same graphics quality preset, we're getting 60 plus FPS, 70 when stationary, but when we start moving the camera, it's 50 plus. So yeah, I can see how this will not be a good idea to use this graphics configuration for battles. We definitely need more FPS. That's why I think it is worth enabling FSR 4, set it to quality modes. it looks good on the 1440p 27-inch display. I don't want to turn off ray tracing in this game because without it, it looks absolutely horrible, and it's not very costly to run. It just drops the FPS by about 10, so it's not a huge deal when the visual improvement is that huge. Let's select medium. And no, we'll not be using FSR performance at 1440p, doesn't look good. I want to stick with FSR quality mode because it looks nice. We didn't get a huge boost to performance, but the FPS is now at 100 plus. However, once we start panning the camera, that drops to 90-ish, even 80s. While this is better and the gameplay is now smoother, yeah, I'm not sure if it's worth it, because the game looks pretty bad even on the highest quality as is, and using lower qualities is just making it so much worse. This top right here looks like something out of the early 2000s era gaming. Absolutely horrific. I guess until the game gets optimized, that is what we have to live with. Just lower the settings, make the game look pretty bad, all in the name of hunting the monsters at a decent frame rate so that we don't have to suffer through all of the stuttering and FPS drops, okay? Next, let's use Spider-Man 2 to check how well ray tracing works on the RX 9070 XT. We are at 1440p resolution using FSR 4 quality mode and very high graphics quality preset with very high... Hold on, where is it? Where's ray tracing? Yeah, very high ray tracing. There's one thing I'd like to turn off. That's depth of field. Let's do that. Turn it off completely. That's because it introduces blurriness in the image. I don't want that. I want to see all the details. Alright, the FPS counter as well as stuttering counter are broken in CapFrameX again in this game. That's happening on every GPU so far. Just look over there for the FPS counter. It's not a huge deal, just ignore that information right there for now. The performance in this game is still not quite stable, so I'm guessing that the game developers still have a lot of work to do in terms of optimizations that this game requires. But as it stands right now, the performance is actually not that bad, considering that we have high ray tracing enabled. Although, take a look at those performance dips. We're seeing 50-ish FPS from time to time, 55 right here. And those spikes on the frame rate graph, I don't like those. That's actually telling me that the game is not running smoothly, and I can feel it actually. If I ignore those graphs, if I ignore all the FPS numbers, the gameplay does feel just a little bit choppy. And that is not nice for such a high action packed game. You want your frame rate to be as smooth as possible. Let's see what happens if we disable ray tracing completely. Will we get a nice smooth frame rate? Without ray tracing, this game doesn't look that great, but look at that performance. Oh my god. In some cases, we're getting 160 plus FPS. But we're still getting dips to around 90-ish, which is bizarre. Okay. And the frame rate is still not smooth. Just take a look at those spikes. It is horrible. Although, when we're getting such a high frame rate, yeah, it's less obvious that those spikes are there. I just want to see if it is possible to get rid of those performance spikes. Let's actually try disabling resolution upscaling. Let's select native resolution. No, it's just the same. It just looks like the game doesn't like running smoothly. Okay, well, at least we've learned that the RX 9070 XT is actually capable of delivering a good ray tracing performance in games. Obviously, this will not be the case if you want to use path tracing. That technique is extremely costly to run, and even the RTX 5090 can't do it properly. 60 plus FPS consistently at 1440p. If you want to learn more about that, I published a video about that phenomena on my channel. And yeah, it's quite bizarre to watch how even the RTX 5090, the most powerful GPU on the market, cannot handle ray tracing, full ray tracing at 1440p. Alan Wake 2 is a good example of the worst case scenario for any AMD GPU because this game heavily focuses on NVIDIA features such as geometry, ray tracing, path tracing, and so on. But it will still be interesting to see how the 9070 XT will do in this game, because if you are buying a graphics card, I don't know about you, but I want to be able to play any game. We are at native 1440p. This game does not feature FSR 3 or FSR 4, and I doubt that we'll ever see it updated with FSR 4 or even FSR 3 for that matter. And we're using high graphics quality preset. Ray tracing is off for now, but we'll take a look at that later. Without ray tracing, performance in this game is quite good. As you can see, even at native 1440p resolution, we're getting well above 60 FPS, sometimes reaching above 100 in this particular level of the game, which is not the most demanding one, but still, we'll spend a lot of time in this game in areas like this one right here, getting similar performance. So this is a good example of just what you can expect on average from this game and this graphics card. Unfortunately, FSR 2 looks absolutely horrible, same as FSR 3.1, and that is one of the things that you should be aware of if you're buying this graphics card, that there are a lot of older games, such as this one right here, that you may want to play one day, but you won't be able to use a good quality resolution upscaling. Whereas with NVIDIA's options, yeah, they have a large catalog of games where you can override older DLSS versions, upgrade them to the latest DLSS 4, whereas you can't do the same with FSR. In the most demanding level of the game, we're still getting above 60 FPS, which is nice to see. Yes, very good indeed. 70 plus in other scenes. Basically, with the 9070 XT, you can expect a good experience, even in worst case scenarios, as long as you are not using ray tracing. And in this game, in some scenes, ray tracing is truly transformative, especially where there are reflections involved. Yeah, it makes a massive difference. So let's go ahead and try ray tracing next. Low ray tracing looks horrible, it just introduces way too many visual imperfections in reflections. So it's not worth using. Medium is like the lowest ray tracing preset that I'd consider using, and that's what we'll go for. In less demanding levels, we're getting 40 plus FPS, barely 40 plus, I mean, And ray tracing really lacks denoising on AMD graphics cards. NVIDIA has ray reconstruction, which denoises all of these problems. You see those flickering white dots over there? Yeah, that is ray tracing noise. Without NVIDIA's ray reconstruction, this looks absolutely horrible. I would even call it unusable because it's just breaking my immersion. It doesn't look nice. Even the reflections, they look very noisy, very grainy. Yeah. It's best to just keep ray tracing off at this point. But then again, you won't be experiencing the transformative visuals of ray tracing in this game, because it is truly transformative. If you can look at this lake and see all of the reflections, it's beautiful. But not on the RX 9070 XT, because this image right here is not beautiful. It is very grainy, very noisy, not pleasant. And the fact that we can't use resolution upscaling to boost our performance, well, I'm talking about FSR 4, which is a good upscaling quality solution. Without it, there's just not enough frames to actually enjoy the game, and I'm definitely not using FSR 2. It is horrible. Yuck. Hopefully all future games will have FSR 4 at launch, because I really like FSR 4, and I hope that it gets implemented in every game, because I really want to use it to boost the performance. Yes, but in older games, yeah, in the forests, it's not looking good with ray tracing enabled. 20 plus FPS is not the kind of experience that I want to see in front of my eyes on the screen. Yeah, it's not looking good, and the ray tracing effects are still very noisy. Now you see why this is the worst case scenario for the RX 9070 XT. Basically, you have to make some sacrifices, visual sacrifices or performance sacrifices, if you want to use this AMD graphics card to play some of the older games that are built for NVIDIA hardware. And no doubt, there will be more games like this in the future, huge AAA titles. You can bet that NVIDIA will not back down and continue using path tracing in all of these beautiful games. It should be said that not every game needs ray tracing to look good. For example, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 looks pretty good. I mean, it looks good enough for what it is, and it certainly is an enjoyable game. We are at 1440p, and we'll start with the highest graphics quality preset, Experimental, and FOV at 100, Native Resolution. As I mentioned previously, FSR 4 refuses to work in this game for me, so we'll have to make do with the old FSR version. Even without resolution upscaling, I think we'll be able to get a good experience out of this game. Not on the experimental graphics quality preset though, because take a look at that. We're already experiencing dips below 50 in some scenes, and yeah, this is not the most graphically intensive scene. Over here, 40 plus already. Yeah, the experimental graphics quality preset is just a little bit too much to handle for the 9070 XT. Let's lower it to the ultra graphics quality preset. And this is much nicer in terms of frame rate. Take a look at this, beautiful, nice and smooth, fluid image. Yes, good experience. This right here is brilliant. I would love to play this game at this resolution with this kind of performance. Native resolution, although it must be said that I still want FSR 4 in this game because TAA doesn't look good, and FSR 3 anti-aliasing is kind of crap as well. So I really want them to fix that issue that stops me from using FSR 4 in this game as soon as possible. Because this damn FSR 3 is messing up the whole thing. Even though we're at native resolution, it still looks blurry when you look at finer details. For example, in the distance, if you look at grass or leaves, yeah, it just doesn't look right. The new FSR 4 resolves these kind of issues, and that's why I want to see it in every game, because I'd love to have AMD competitive again versus NVIDIA. Not only because NVIDIA GPUs would be forced to become cheaper, but also because competition promotes progress and innovation. Let's see what kind of performance we can get with the FSR quality mode. Okay, 120 FPS in some scenes, 100 plus in others. Just bear in mind that FSR 3 is lighter than FSR 4, so if you're watching this when FSR 4 is already in this game, then just beware that FSR 4 frames will be lower. So we'll get lower frame rate with FSR 4. It will probably be about 10 FPS less, which still be a pretty good job in terms of frame rate. Yeah, it'll be beautiful. I'm happy to report that I actually like the RX 9070 XT. It is a good graphics card that I can recommend pairing with a 1440p monitor in 2025 because of the arrival of FSR 4. Finally, AMD has a good resolution upscaler. But this graphics card has to be way cheaper than NVIDIA alternatives for one simple reason. You have to make some compromises because FSR 4 is not being as widely adopted as DLSS 4, and DLSS 4 can be overridden into a lot of older games, whereas FSR 4 is not able to do that simply because AMD has not been using DLL files for their upscaling technology for as long as NVIDIA has. So NVIDIA can just swap those files using the NVIDIA app and have DLSS 4 or whatever comes after that, the next version. You can just update it in any game and play even the older titles using the latest DLSS version. Whereas with FSR 4, yeah, that number of games is extremely limited, and I'm still not sure how it will pan out for AMD in terms of future releases. I'm hoping that they've learned their lesson and that they will work more closely with game developers to bring FSR 4 into every major game release going forward, but we'll just have to wait and see if that will actually happen. But overall, I am pretty happy with the 9070 XT. The ray tracing performance is good, the rasterization performance is good. Even at native 1440p, we can play a lot of games, no issues. And the main reason I would choose this over the RTX 5070 is because it has 16 gigabytes of memory. Yeah, games are becoming more and more VRAM hungry, and that is just a fact. In 2025 and beyond, more and more games will require more than 12 gigabytes of memory, even at 1440p if you want to use the highest texture quality. As long as AMD can keep this graphics card at $600 or lower, then I will keep recommending it. But AMD, it better be 600, not more than that. That's what I think about this combo. What about you? What do you think about this combo? Do you like it? Are you thinking about getting one of these bad boys? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, then don't forget to reward my work with a like, subscribe for more if you haven't already, and if you are interested in any of the products featured in this video, you can find them on Amazon and the links in the description below. It was I, Vadim. Until next time.